Welcome to the Sunday morning worship service of DuPage Unitarian Universalist Church in Naperville, Illinois for March 13th, 2022. I'm Reverend Connie Grant, minister of this congregation. We are so glad that you are here, whether you are present in the sanctuary this morning or watching remotely. It is so good to be together. To keep us all as safe as possible, we'll remain physically distant in the building and will remain masked, except that Katie and I will remove our masks to speak from the microphone, having taken rapid COVID tests with negative results. Out of an abundance of caution, here in the sanctuary, we'll hum our hymns, along with recordings of our choristers, or sing silently into our hearts. And of course, if you are watching online, you can sing out freely. These restrictions may seem frustrating, but we are doing all we can to take care of this community. As Unitarian Universalists, we hold that there are many paths to truth and meaning, and we support one another in our spiritual and religious journeys. Whether you are a member or friend of this congregation or have recently discovered us, we are glad that you are with us this morning. Whether in person or distant from one another, we are together in spirit. Whoever you are and wherever you are welcome here.
Good morning. This is so lovely to see you. I'm Katie Hay, a member of the congregation and the clerk on your board of trustees and today's worship associate. Today and each Sunday, please join us for social time, hosted by Rev Connie via Zoom following the service from 11:30 to noon. Socialize with friends old and new, and consider a discussion question related to the service as we break into small groups. Today and each second Sunday of the month, you are invited to conversation and connection with members of the Board of Trustees from noon until 12:30 by Zoom. Bring your coffee and your questions. You can find the links for social time and Zoom with the board on the church website under Here's What's Happening Now.
May this symbol of transformation fire our curiosity, strengthen our wills, and sustain our courage as we seek what is good within and around us.
Opening words from an anonymous source. May we be reminded here of our highest aspirations and inspired to bring our gifts of love and service to humanity. May we know once again that we are not isolated beings, but connected in mystery and miracle to the universe, to this community, and to each other.
Good morning. I'm Steve Cooper down here on the floor with our children and youth that will be attending religious education this morning. It is time to gather. And we humans have always looked up at the stars and wondered about them and even told stories about them. And during the many thousand years that human beings have been looking up at the stars, we've changed our understanding of what the universe looks like and how it works. More than 500 years ago, a man named Nicholas Copernicus was born in Poland. And he watched the stars and planets and used his observations to come up with a pretty unique but upsetting idea. In his day, most people thought that the earth was at the center of the universe and that everything revolved around the earth. And for them, they thought the sun was going around the earth and was smaller than the earth. So for hundreds of years, the belief was that the universe revolved around the earth. And that was stuck in people's minds, and it became a part of their religion too. And it was kind of a religious belief. So Copernicus said with his observations that the earth bounced away, that the earth revolved around the sun rather than the sun around the earth. And when he told people this, they thought, heresy, how dare you think this? This is the way things have always been, this is the way it is. You can't be saying things like that. You're changing our religion because you're changing how we are thinking about how planets are and how the earth is, whether the earth is the center of things. So he actually wrote a book about this. And if he hadn't died otherwise, he would have been put in jail. So he died shortly after he wrote the book. But had he not died, he probably would have been in jail and maybe even killed because of his beliefs and what he's trying to teach people. So not very far away from where Copernicus watched the planets and stars, there is a land called Transylvania. And if you watched last week's service, I talked about Transylvania and building a Unitarian church there. So so Transylvania is where some of the first Unitarian churches came from. And when they formed their faith, and this is something that we believe also, or a lot of Unitarians believe, is that the motto is God is one. So for a lot of the Christian churches, they see that Jesus is a part of God, and the resurrected Jesus is a part of God, and then there's God, so there's three different parts to God. Unitarians see that there's one God, and God is the overall, overarching power to be. So there's a village in Transylvania today, and it's now part of Romania, and it's ethnically Hungarian. But in their church, up on the ceiling, they have panels, kind of like our ceiling, how we have different portions paneled off. And in their church, they have flowers painted and trees painted. But on one of the panels, they have a sun with planets going around it to show that they are in line with what Copernicus was teaching. And several years ago, Unitarian Rebecca Parker wrote, "Holy regard for knowledge is at the heart of our religious faith. At a time when religion was opposing science, our ancestors in the remote mountains and valleys of Transylvania built sanctuaries that affirmed the discoveries of science. And they did so even when the dominant religious culture advocated ideologies that allowed no new revelation." So Copernicus was talking as a scientist, and everybody else is looking at it from the religious aspect. So let's celebrate these gifts which have been woven into our religious DNA. We belong to a tradition in which religion and science have never been forced apart or asked each other to be silent. And we as a people encourage one another to explore and discover, to ask questions and declare that revelation is not sealed and will never be sealed, and to freely follow the call, whatever its source, that connects us most deeply to the world inside of us and to the universe around us. So it is now time to go to class. So all the kids will rise, we'll go to class. Elementary kids will be meeting in the social hall, Creeves Hall. After service, that's where you'll find them to be able to pick them up. And high school kids in the Founders Room, and junior high in the Learning Center. All right, thank you.
And will those remaining in the sanctuary please rise in body or in spirit and hum or sing along silently with our choristers as you see them on video.
Sing loudly till the stars have heard. In joy feast on this bounteous word. Our praises call us to explore, till sun shall rise and set no more.
Please join me in today's responsive reading. It is Cherish Your Doubts by Robert T. Weston. Your parts are the indented, italicized lines. Cherish your doubts, for doubt is the attendant of truth.
Doubt is the key to the door of knowledge.
A belief which may not be questioned binds us to error, for there is incompleteness and imperfection in every belief. Let no one fear for the truth, that doubt may consume it, for doubt is a testing of belief. For truth, if it be truth, arises from each testing, stronger, more secure. But those who fear not doubt know its use, are founded on rock. Therefore, let us not fear doubt, but let us rejoice in its help. Please rise in body or spirit and join in humming or singing silently with our choristers, hymn number 300, With Heart and Mind.
With heart and mind and voice and hand, may we this time and place transcend, to make our purpose
We hold each other in our hearts and minds with all our joys and all our sorrows. A note from Scott Trombley Freitag. Kelly lost her last surviving sister, Laura, yesterday due to a stroke. As the Spirit moves you, please reach out to Kelly with condolences. And I see the addition to Kelly and Becky as well with condolences. And as we watch the news about the Russian invasion of Ukraine with continuing fear and horror, we pray for safety and strength for the Ukrainian people. We pray for peace. The Unitarian Universalist Service Committee is accepting donations to their Emergency Response Fund to help provide protection, working with organizations on the ground to help refugees fleeing Ukraine. You can find information about the UUSC's response at uusc.org, and you can make a contribution there if you choose. We are remembering those who are experiencing losses of various kinds and those facing health challenges. We are aware that many are faced with heightened difficulties presented by these times that continue to be difficult for all. Even when the cares of the world weigh on us, may we find joy in our connections with each other and in the pleasures that life holds. Let us care for one another and for ourselves in all the ways we can. As we hold each other in our hearts and minds, with all our joys and all our sorrows, whether spoken or unspoken, let's take a moment to be quiet together. I ask, what is the name for this place that we live? Uncertainty, ambiguity, paradox. A place where everything can be called into question. A place without fixed answers. A place of yes, but, yes, if, yes, and. A place of qualifiers and modifiers. A place where hypothesis is the law of the land. In this place, our restless faith rests.
This month's special collection will go to Riverwalk Adult Day Services. And Riverwalk has been providing expert and loving care for adults for nearly 40 years. And family members can rest assured that their loved ones will receive excellent care and a variety of interesting and engaging activities throughout the day. So please join me in welcoming Jennifer Brasfield, the Executive Director of Riverwalk, as she tells us more about this wonderful organization.
Good morning. I'm Jennifer Brasfield, the Executive Director of the Riverwalk Adult Day Services. On behalf of the Riverwalk Adult Day staff and participants, I want to thank the DuPage Unitarian Universal Church for allowing me to speak today. With the help of this church and others in Naperville, Riverwalk Adult Day Services, formerly known as the Ecumenical Adult Day, was formed in 1983 as a nonprofit to help seniors that cannot be left home alone. According to the 2017 DuPage census, 1 in 10 adults aged 45 or older suffers from some form of dementia. This is one of the driving forces that in 2018, Riverwalk Adult Day expanded our services to include adults 18 and older that have some form of cognitive decline. The care we provide assists families as their loved ones navigate such conditions as dementia, Parkinson's, stroke, and intellectual disabilities, to name a few. Riverwalk Adult Day Services provides a full day, half day, and a drop-in service program. According to the Alzheimer's Association, by the year 2060, there will be an estimated 3.3% of the U.S. population that suffers from some form of dementia. This is one reason that Riverwalk Adult Day Services staff are trained to be dementia-friendly, the first center in Naperville to have this distinction. With the ever-growing dementia population, Riverwalk has decided to enact fundraising with purpose, where we design fundraising activities that our members can participate in. This allows our participants to feel that they have purpose while at the center. This year, we had a gift wrapping fundraiser where the participants would wrap Christmas presents for a donation. In the spring, we will be having a plant sale, and all the plants have been grown by our participants. Be sure to look out for our flyer in April. We are looking forward to planning additional fundraising activities as time goes on. Another new program for the Riverwalk is our VA program. Riverwalk is happy to announce that since receiving our VA contract, we have served 10 veterans, and we currently have a veteran from each arm of the military. With COVID still being a presence in Illinois, Riverwalk continues to exceed the safety precautions outlined by the state and the CDC to ensure the health of our participants and their families. However, working within these guidelines means that we can only work with a 50% of our normal capacity. This is why we are so grateful that as a founding church, you continue to choose Riverwalk Adult Day Services as a beneficiary to your donations. These funds will be used to continue our services to help ward off depression caused by social isolation, help with mental stimulation that can help slow the progression of dementia, and allow caregivers to work and take care of themselves. For more information about the Riverwalk, please go to our website, riverwalkadultdayservices.com. Thank you so much for letting me be here today.
Donations to support Riverwalk Adult Day Services and DuPage Unitarian Universalist Church can be made through the church website or by mailing a check to the church office. Contributions are given and received in a spirit of generosity and gratitude.
Today's reading is Training Your Doubt by Rainer Maria Rilke. And your doubt can become a good quality if you train it. It must become knowing. It must become criticism. Ask it whenever it wants to spoil something for you, why something is ugly. Demand proofs of it. Test it, and you will find it perhaps bewildered and embarrassed, perhaps also protesting. But don't give in. Insist on arguments. Act in this way, attentive and persistent, every single time. And the day will come when instead of being a destroyer, it will become one of your best workers, perhaps the most intelligent of the ones that are building your life.
A story is told about a conversation between a Unitarian Universalist minister and a longtime congregant. The minister had preached a sermon describing the essence of Unitarian Universalism. The longtime congregant had been unable to attend, and this was in the days before services were available on YouTube. The congregant asked the minister for a synopsis of the sermon. The minister said, "Well, I began by saying that Unitarian Universalists tend to be skeptical." The congregant replied, "I'm not sure I believe that at all." I am pretty sure that Unitarian Universalists really do tend to be skeptical. I know I do. Somewhere I have a button that proclaims that I am a devout skeptic. We Unitarian Universalists tend to be doubters, but can we be faithful doubters, faithful to more than doubt itself? The use of reason is part of our Unitarian DNA. As the opening of his famous sermon in 1819 titled Unitarian Christianity, our forebear William Ellery Channing began with the words from 1 Thessalonians in Christian scripture. Prove all things and hold fast that which is good. He was suggesting to his Christian Unitarian fellow travelers of 200 years ago that when it comes to religion, put everything to the test and keep the good stuff. Channing wrote, "Our leading principle in interpreting Scripture is that its meaning is to be sought in the same manner as that of other books." He wrote, "We feel it our bounden duty to exercise our reason upon it perpetually, to compare, to infer, to look beyond the letter to the spirit, to seek in the nature of the subject and the aim of the writer's true meaning, and in general, to make use of what is known, for explaining what is difficult, and for discovering new truths." While he was at it, Channing proclaimed the unity of God as opposed to the doctrine of the Trinity, thus embracing the name Unitarian. And Channing postulated Jesus as fully human rather than having two natures, human and divine. Many of us come to Unitarian Universalism after finding that the sure and certain beliefs of doctrinal religions were foreign to us. Some of us found that the religions of our childhood did not make sense to us, and we were glad to find a place where our questions were valued and even encouraged. We were glad to find a place where our beliefs as well as our doubts were respected. Our emphasis on religious freedom for ourselves and others has sometimes been interpreted to mean that Unitarian Universalists can believe anything they want. But that is not really true. Rather, Unitarian Universalists can believe what we must believe, based on our own experience and our conscience. We Unitarian Universalists are free to believe what we believe. If we could truly choose to believe anything we wanted, some of us might have chosen differently. If we could simply believe anything we wanted, some of us might have chosen to believe the doctrines of the churches we grew up in. For some, being able to believe those doctrines would have meant avoiding sometimes painful conflict with family members or teachers who did not understand or appreciate our questioning. Reason, using our experience of how the world works, is a tool that forges our beliefs. We believe what our minds and hearts tell us to believe. Unitarian Universalists tend to understand reality as being of a piece. We do not believe in some religious realm which is of an entirely different nature than the realm of our everyday reality. The standards of belief that apply to our everyday lives are the same standards we apply to cosmic reality. We tend to live by hypothesis rather than axiom. We formulate our hypotheses about the cosmic questions based on our experience. Our Unitarian forebear, Ralph Waldo Emerson, another radical, once said, "The religion that is afraid of science dishonors God and commits suicide. It acknowledges that it is not equal to the whole of truth, that it legislates and tyrannizes over a village of God's empire, but it is not the universal immutable law. Every influx of atheism, of skepticism, is thus made useful as a mercury pill assaulting and removing a diseased religion and making way for truth." As Emerson said, our skepticism can be useful. We continually test our religious hypotheses, but this does not need to mean that we don't have convictions. We place faith in our hypotheses. Like any hypothesis, our faith is tested by doubt and questions and the reality of further experience. We Unitarian Universalists tend not to take religion on faith alone. We religious liberals place faith in reason itself, trusting our ability to draw valid conclusions. But reason, too, has its limits. Overemphasis on reason earned our Unitarian forebears the title God's frozen people. Those Unitarian forebears apparently forgot that reason and emotion need not be mutually exclusive. But reason reduced to rationalism keeps us from remembering that our knowledge is imperfect, keeps us from remembering that there are truths unknown as well as truths unknowable. As Unitarian Universalists, our religious movement is grounded and founded in reason. Yet reason has its limitations. While our beliefs need not go against reason, our beliefs may take us beyond the limits of reason without necessarily being irrational. Can we understand and accept the limitations of reason, saving ourselves from the idolatry of rationalism? Reason is a tool for discovering new truths, as Channing said, but it is not an end in and of itself. As the poet Rilke suggested, your doubt can become a good quality if you train it. The day will come when instead of being a destroyer, it will become one of your best workers, perhaps the most intelligent of the ones that are building your life. One of my favorite lines from the book Life of Pi is this: to choose doubt as a philosophy of life, is akin to choosing immobility as a means of transportation. Even agnostics, even militant agnostics, the ones who say, I don't know and you don't either, need more than doubt. The goal of the search for truth must be to find truths we can live by, truths about the worth and dignity of human beings, truths about the universe we live in, and truths about the part we as human beings play in that universe. It is important not only that we search for truth, it is also important that we find truths and share them, and that we put them into practice in the world. Our doubt, to be a truly useful tool, must lead us to faith, not the rigid faith of belief without reason, not the unthinking faith of unreasonable ideas. Wilfred Cantwell Smith, considered one of the most influential scholars of comparative religion of the 20th century, contrasted belief and faith. Belief, he said, is the holding of certain ideas. Faith, on the other hand, is more personal. It is engendered by a religious tradition in some cases, and to some degree by its doctrines, but it is a quality of the person and not the system. It is an orientation of the personality to oneself, to one's neighbor, to the universe, a total response, a way of seeing whatever one sees, and of handling whatever one handles, a capacity to live at more than a mundane level, to see, to feel, to act in terms of a transcendent dimension. Faith, then, is a quality of human living. Similarly, James Fowler, author of the book Stages of Faith, about faith as a developmental process, wrote that most often faith is understood as a belief in a certain propositional, doctrinal formulations that in some essential and static way are supposed to contain truth. But he said, if faith is relational, a pledging of trust and fidelity to another, and a way of moving into the force field of life, trusting in dynamic centers of value and power, then the truth of faith takes on a different quality. Truth is lived, he said. It is a pattern of being in relation to others. In what do we place our faith? How do we live our truth? Do we place our faith in reason, experience, science, in growth, in transformation? Do we place our faith in love? Do we place our faith in life itself? Faithful doubt is not the same as doubtful faith. Skepticism isn't the same as cynicism. Faith without certainty is not the same as faith without conviction. As my colleague and mentor Rupert Lovely wrote, We are strangers to creeds of old, to sure and certain beliefs, to closed revelations, to rigid laws and fixed ways. We would seek richer understandings, profounder courage, images for fuller humanness, and greater freedoms to discover, create, and be that which is good. So let us be faithful doubters, searching for truth together. Let us cherish our doubts and cherish the way of faith that we share, which guides and sustains us in our search. Let us be faithful to the good, moving into the force field of life trustingly and dynamically. Let us be faithful. And now will you rise again in body or in spirit and join in humming or singing silently with our choristers. Thanks be for these.
Thanks be for these life's holy times, moments of grief, days of delight, triumph and failure intertwine, shaping our vision of the right. Thanks be for these, for birth and death, life in between with meaningful, holy becomes the quickened breath. We celebrate life's interval. Thanks be for these ennobling art, images welcome to our sight, music caressing ear and heart, inviting us to loftier height.
As we extinguish the chalice flame, these words adapted from Thessalonians. Let us go forth into the world, being of good courage, putting all things to the test and holding fast to that which is good.
And may we live our lives fully and creatively so that we may be a blessing to ourselves, to each other, and to all those whose lives we touch.